first part of our tutorials based on Linux operating systems. It will cover our basic module. There will be three modules, one will cover basics, then the intermediate, and the third one will cover the advanced, in which we will be doing shell scripting and coding. Hacking part 2 will be coming there. So now for what is we have gathered to understand actually what is Linux. Now the basic part covers this. Well, to understand this, first we have to understand the open source software. Now what does you actually mean by an open source? Open source softwares are the computer softwares which are available in their source codes and also comes with their compiled forms. Means you have the software also, and you have also its source code, which is provided under a license which permits the users to study, change and improve the software. Actually, what is that license is based on, we will see that also. As open source does not only means that you have got the source code and you have got all you have got, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's like you are given a software like MS Office, as you can't see its source code, means how this program is coded. A source code means the coding of the programs, how the program is coded. But what actually you can see in open source, that you can see its source code, you can modify it to your own needs, to your own business needs. For example, there is a tank given to you, and you have been given its blueprints and its technology, and what is made, what is the length of the gun, and what other factors are there, what is the traction which works on what surface it works. Its blueprints you have been given. Now with the blueprint you could modify it, change it according to your own source, say according to your own need. So I hope you have understand this. Now what actually is indeed the definition of OSS license actually. Now what license should have been in itself, so that it could be termed as the license of the OSS, open source software. Now license must allow modification, and derived works must also be allowed to be distributed. Means if I have got a software and and someone else have made modifications in it, it should be allowed to be distributed, and the terms and conditions can be changed under which it has been distributed, as the terms and conditions were for the original software. Now this also doesn't mean that anybody could take my source code software and could change it into some other softwares and name it or not. It means that integrity of my source code must be maintained. Now there would be no racism if you say, or no discrimination against a person or a group. It can be used by any person. And now also no discrimination against fields of work. For example, a business authority software, you cannot say that it cannot be used for scientific purposes, or a scientific software cannot be used by school students for work, as if it comes under open source. Then free distribution, the license cannot restrict from anybody to selling or giving away softwares. For example, you may have come to, if you will see Linux, there are not only one Linux operating system in the world. There are many types of companies, vendors. Some are there selling it, some are just giving it away to you. For example, Ubuntu is a free sourceware. Ubuntu is generally given freely, but if you look for Red Hat, like it is given by, if you pay for it. If you pay for it, only then you get Red Hat software. OS, pardon. Now the source code of the program which undercomes the OSS must include its source code and distribution of the source code. For example, but you can also download it differently. It depends on who is giving you actually the source code. For example, code blocks comes in a nightly build, which means the source code comes and you could just change it according to your own needs and build your own code blocks for programming purposes in C and C++. But code blocks also come in a built-in version, in which just you have to download it and you can run it also, or you could download both of them and could use for your own purposes. Now this license cannot restrict other software like Linux or some other software which you may be using. You can't just allow ask them to leave the other uses of other softwares. It is not possible. It violates its terms. A license can't restrict other softwares. Now it must be a technologically neutral, which means that style of the interface must be neutral, or it must be based on only one technologies only. It must be neutral, means there should be a balance of different technologies when using it. Now we come into the history of open source softwares or OSs. Now free software movement actually started in 1983. Some group in the 1998 suggested to replace the free term with open source, as many open source actually doesn't means the that you have the only to freedom of cost, you don't have to buy, but it comes to the freedom to distribute, means you could use its source code, to freedom to view its source code, freedom to modify it, freedom to change it your own needs. Now many OSS license have been qualified within the boundaries of OSD, which we have seen above, but most common is the GNU's general public license, or we will say general GPL. Now there are many other or industry was at that time in 1998 was divided into two segments then. One was open source softwares and other was closed source softwares. In open source we have our Linux, Android and other softwares. In closed source we have our Microsoft and Apple. You see, and in also this we will discuss about them in details in our next further upcoming tutorials, which I will load sooner or later. You have to wait for that. Now OSI is Open Source Initiative. It was formed in 1998 by Sir Eric S. Raymond. That was you could find it about him on Google if you Google it. Okay. Now Linux, a brief introduction. Now Linux is an OS with graphical interface based on Unix. It was made by Linus Torvald. But what is actually is Unix? Now the question which you may came. Now Unix is a multi-user computer operating system derived from originally it was developed at Bell Laboratories. It was a research center at Bell Lab Research Centers at developed by Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie and other guys who were samely working on C. You may know Dennis Ritchie for his work on C language. At first the Unix was written in B language, or later words it was again rewritten in C language, as C was better than the B language at that time. Unix is generally based on command line. If you see a difference between a Linux and Unix, that Unix is mainly based on command line, means there is no graphics, no mouse, only it's like a DOS prompt, you have to just type all the commands, so it becomes a little bit difficult. But Linux comes with the combination of graphical interface and plus also with the command based interface, so you have to be also covered with a command based interface and graphical interface. Now to use its full potential, if you want to use the Linux, you need to use its command based prompt, command based terminal, which could we will learn about how to use that in the next upcoming tutorials. Now you guys may want to know that the first worm which was created ever for and spread through computers was made for Unix. Its name was Morris worm and it was created at MIT, and it damaged a lot to the US departments, US government officials. Now we have what is a kernel is. Now if you may have come, there is a term which has come is the kernel, not kernel of army, it's kernel. If you sorry, forgive my pronunciation, it's not that good. But kernel actually stands for the it's a defining component of a Linux. You can see that it's a computer part, it's an important fundamental part on which the Linux is based. What happens that kernel is a program which manages input and output request and translates them into data processing instructions for CPU and other electronic parts. For example, if you are typing anything, then from the keyboard it goes to the kernel there, and in that the kernel there then it gives to the CPU, transforms the CPU and other electronic parts, it's the kernel on which other applications are being built. So each Linux have its same kernel, but the application or the other levels of which it is built, that what's make actually the difference in the Linux for different versions. Now Linux is the leading OS today, but it only used mainly in servers and mainframe computers. Personal users or normal users like me or someone else don't like to use it, usually because it gets a little bit complicated when you have to use both command line prompt and on based on graphical user interface. But the advantage of Linux mainly is that it is the most secure operating system we ever had in the world. Most secure. If you don't believe me that it's the most secure operating system, I will tell you about the stories about that, about its advantage in its upcoming section in the advantages. Now first take a look on Linux based operating system like Ubuntu, which luckily I am using and it's my favorite as it's free of cost, and I will be giving my further tutorials of basics and intermediate on Ubuntu only. For advanced, for using on servers and server side scripting, shell coding, we will be using Red Hat. Now you could see Fedora, Red Hat, SUSE, Kali, for which is especially made for hackers. It's called Hacker OS. You could download it from any of its website, Kali. It's the mint Android Ubuntu Touch for smartphones. It's used for smartphones actually. It's been made. It's actually in its beta version. So if you want to update it, I will soon upload it. Again, it's a tutorial on how to upload it on your smartphones. But let me warn you that it's currently in beta version, and so it's in testing mode. So don't just try to. If you want to you install it, you guys should have an extra spare phone which you less used. Okay, now moving forward, we are seeing the advantage of using Linux. Why we should use Linux? It's free of charge. That's the first advantage. Source code can be modified according to our own need. And then comes the main bonus point is that it's more secure than other OS. Due to being an open source, its bugs and vulnerabilities are discovered quite faster than compared to other OS. And that's why it is more secure from virus, hackers and NSA. Now you all know NSA for all its notorious purpose for spying on the peoples of America and India and Germany and many other, even the German chancellor was not spared from it. So if you want your NSA to look into your computer, breach into your computer, you should immediately install Linux. Because Linux, even if NSA may be able to track your covers on the internet, that's what you may be doing. But once inside on your Linux, they won't be able to enter in here because it is quite secure. As it has got, why it is that much secure? For one of the reason for that is it have got nearly 8 security modules. 8 security modules, so it becomes quite difficult for someone to hack. And if you still don't believe me, then let me tell you an example which happened in 2008 in a hackers conference at CanSec West. It was in 2008. There was a competition named PWN 20WN, and it offered free computers and a cash prize from $20,000 to and $10,000 to the hackers who would hack Apple, Microsoft, and Linux computers. Okay, so in the 3 days, on the first day, about 400 people hacked Mac OS, and Windows on the second and third day Windows was hacked, but Linux was untouchable. It was not hacked there. Even this incident repeated in 2013, and the prize money was up to $1 million. But still, nobody was able to hack Linux. Everybody hacked. Most of them were easy to hack Windows and Mac, but no one was able to hack Linux. So you can see now, I hope that you may be trusting it why it's so much secure. Also that due to its low market share in personal uses, less viruses have been there for Linux. It's all, you can say it's completely immune for them. Now it has got a wide compatibility with server hardwares. It requires minimum hardware on it which can it work. It could run in a very good condition. It is quite faster, and it comes inclusive of drivers. Unlike when I Windows, in if you install Windows 7, sometimes it says that it got no that graphic driver. You may have to use it from download it from some other site. So it saves your money and extra efforts which you need. Now Linux is ideal for programmers, for developers like me. If you want to be a developer or programmer, I will suggest you to install Linux as it provides you an ideal environment for doing programming. Hackers even use them, study the Linux as it's a quite make a good foundation for them. Many PHP applications like Moodle will easily work on Linux rather than Windows. Now, let me tell you, Moodle is an educational system which is made on PHP, education application. And if you try to install it on Windows, I tried it, it would be quite a lot headache. Rather than it would be quite easier to install on the Linux. Now Linux is speedy, whereas Windows tend to go slower day after day. As Windows come with a lot of bloatware software, so they make it quite slow after a few days, after a few months if you use it continuously. And that's why you need to refresh your system. Like in Windows 8.1, you have to refresh your system, or you have to reset your system files and all that stuff. So Linux saves us from that hurdles. Now Linux also comes with a powerful OS Office softwares which are free of course, and it quite provides us a good advantage to us. So now I have given you probably all the advantages why you should is a Linux is. I have given you a basic idea of what a Linux is, why you should use it, and what are its advantages. And in my upcoming tutorials, I will load up more content regarding Linux. We will start from the very basics, and then we will move to servers, and then we will move to hacking, and so on. Please like us on, share us on, and it with my name. You can find me on Facebook with the Immortal Learning, and you could also follow me on Twitter. And please don't misuse this content materials. I have taken a lot of efforts to prepare these slides for you. So have a nice day to all of you. I wish you a very good life. The journey of our in Linux has just already begun, and let's see who stays with me. And please don't forget to subscribe on me on YouTube. And please like it, share it, comment it. If you have any doubt, just comment it. You could also contact me on Facebook ID, and also contact me on my Twitter account.